Okay, today we have Barry Macarillo. Is that how you pronounce it, Barry?
Certainly is. Thank you very much.
Right, tell me a bit about yourself, Barry. Where are you from? How do you pronounce this name, if I pronounced it correctly? Tell me the different variants of it. Tell me a bit about yourself. Come on.
Well, surname is Greek, Greek parents. You said it very well. Barry Macarillo.
Well, it's like I asked you earlier on, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Or if you want the proper Greek saying, it's Macarillo, which is it's quite a famous name in Cyprus, where my parents are from.
I just call you Barry.
But I bit of background about myself. I'm originally from Channel Islands in Jersey, and obviously once I came to UK, did a foundation course Bournemouth, which was absolutely amazing. And then quickly decided I wanted to carry on and do a degree in graphic design at Central St Martin's. And then straight after that, I managed to specialise in photography in my last year while I was there, which was quite a difficult thing to do at that time because everyone was told not to do photography because it was the last recession, things weren't going very well. But we pulled through, started really looking up to certain photographers, people like Jürgen Teller at the time. For me, was almost going around with a compact camera, single flash, and creating some really amazing kind of fashion shots.
So street and fashion type.
Street fashion, and then ranking was kind of coming up around that time as well. With just always looked great, kind of fill in flash, always shot with a couple of stops down. So all these people who inspired me when I was a bit younger. So I actually started off doing men's fashion. It's more renowned for that. So left uni very lucky. One of the first jobs I did was for, back in the day, called Mix magazine, and I did an 8-page feature. And then the second job I did was for Esquire, which was like another 8-page fashion feature. So that's the kind of doors that Central St Martin's opened up for me.
Yeah.
And did that for a number of years. Very lucky, didn't have to assist. Went straight into earning good money. I was with lots of model agencies doing new faces. So getting to meet hairstylists, makeup artists.
Yeah.
And so just a bit of context, while I was doing these fashion shoots, they started having, nice watches on set. And they're like, oh, do you mind shooting some watches while you're here? Or some shoes and some close-ups. And then obviously the more I did this, the more I started to build a name for myself that I was doing really nice still life.
Something that you really enjoyed and you wanted to get into.
And I thought, well, this is interesting. I quite enjoy this. So it's not something I was taught, kind of stumbled into it. And then the next time I was a contributor for Esquire at the time, and they said, do you mind doing our next 10-page watch feature, 30 watches? And we need it done in a really cool graphic way. So I was like, right, okay, I know just the thing. So I had a great time shooting that.
How long ago was this?
Yeah,
I don't want to give away your age, but
I was going to ask him his age. I was going to say, we're talking past tense here. There's quite a lot of past situations.
I mean, it's good to give where how it kind of started.
How long have you been doing it for? That's the question there.
I think I left uni 97. So I started doing watches and all these features pretty much in 1998. Quite quickly. I think within 2 years of leaving uni, I kind of started to transition into still life rather than fashion.
Yeah.
And but I still did both for quite a long time. But still life was great. But it's amazing how, when I think back at what I actually did for that shoot and the lighting, it's almost a little bit embarrassing. But at the time, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, when you're young and you do something, it's always like, that was amazing. And you look back at it now and you cringe.
I actually moved house recently and found all the transparencies, even from those shoots.
So that was film. You were shooting film.
Yeah, I was shooting film. RZ67, if anyone knows that. So the best kind of quality at the time, but it was a steep learning curve. No one taught me anything. I taught myself. Not like these days, where obviously you've got a wealth of things to tap into behind the scenes.
Hashtag YouTube.
So Yeah, so basically went on to I was very renowned for watches and products, and it was only probably about 10, 12 years ago I started getting more into liquids and really enjoying the liquids, and I wanted to do that because it's a very specialist thing to do. I really wanted to kind of I found it very intriguing that every shot was different.
I've got your portfolio in front of me. I've seen all your work online, and it's absolutely amazing. It's all liquid based, it's all different, it's all out the box, unordinary. I mean, when you first got into this, what was going through your mind? What were you thinking, that I want to do this, or I have to get into this, or this is something different? I mean, what was going on?
Things always come with the jobs that you're commissioned to do normally steer you in the direction that you kind of end up going, if that makes sense. So you are kind of a little bit dictated to by the jobs that come in. So for example, I spent many years doing very high-end tech photography. I was a main contributor for T3 magazine, shooting lots of phones, lots of gadgets, and I had a very good reputation for doing that. But in the same time, I was asked to do, I think it all started when there was a couple of waterproof phones that came out, asked to shoot phones in water and bubbles, and I found it amazing. I was like, right, this is brilliant, really enjoy doing this. So then you start to do more of that, and then before you know it, you get asked to do more and more kind of liquid work, and I enjoyed it the most because of the amount of variation that you get from doing it. Every shot was different. The manipulation, how to treat liquid, how to light liquid, and you get a feel for it. And then I thought this is definitely something that I wanted to pursue. But it's a very expensive business very expensive kind of thing to do, because you can't just do it with a normal flash gear. You have to have very short flash duration. I shoot with a Broncolor Scoro S, which does shoot 10,000th of a second, which is very, very short flash duration, but still with great power. So things like that are very expensive. So once you go down that road, I kind of realised that not everyone would be doing this type of thing, and it was a good area to get into.
You found your niche.
It's a good niche because it's not too overcrowded, because of what I enjoy. Freezing motion isn't easy to do. Not everyone can do it. I mean, you can shoot a drinks bottle easily, or you could shoot that kind of thing, but when you're doing explosive, showing something in motion that you have to freeze, then that's what stands out for me, being renowned for that.
How much of what you do is Photoshop based and real life? So when you take a photo, how much of that is already there, and how much do you actually put together in Photoshop?
I think for me, I try and do as much as I can in camera, but I'm a great believer of having a vision and doing whatever it takes to create that vision. So I would take something and literally do whatever it takes to get to the final image that I want to do. So I don't like the word, you could say it's kind of cheating, but I shoot as many assets as I need to shoot to get to the final image.
Makes perfect sense.
So normally it's to do with time, and normally it's to do with what will give me the best possible outcome, and 9 times out of 10 it is shooting separate items together, because you've got the full control. You're dealing with layers. The client normally prefers shooting in that way. There's so many different formats these days that need to be fulfilled. So you're shooting layers, and you can do square format, you can do portrait, you can do landscape, you can it's much more versatile than if you did everything in one shot. Then that's it for that one thing, and then it causes problems down the line, I think. So
I can see you taking forever to take one photo. So we can appreciate that, because we do something that's fairly similar to what you do. So we work with motion control in super slow motion, and then you do, it's a very similar craft to yours, but you just freeze that motion once. And I can see you, down to your lighting, down to the way your photography looks. I can see that you're spending a ton of time in preparation. How long does it take for a water-based photo I know it's hard to quantify the time that goes into it. But
I think now things are quite streamlined because when the briefs come in, you kind of know exactly what you need to do to get what the client's asking for. So maybe 5-6 years ago, I would have been a little bit more, right, I'm going to have to experiment now and see what to do. But majority of things now, I would say I know how long it will take or what needs to be done. But you do need a lot of prep work for when people come to you and they want something slightly different, or they want to use multiple assets and bring in the more assets you bring together, the longer it's going to take, the more pre-planning I need. So for instance, if I'm doing a shot that's got it needs to say quite a lot, so for instance a drink shoot where I might be promoting dairy-free milks with coffee, so then there might be almonds, there's a milk pour, there's a splash, there's a drink, there's a backdrop. So even though I'm going to shoot all these assets separately, I need to really make sure that after I've done that it's actually going to work.
They're all going to work together.
So you can either risk and do everything all at once, and then at the end you're like, I'll make it work, or you kind of stop and you do all the different variants. You have a quick kind of I quickly paste it all together, have a quick look at Photoshop, think, yeah, okay, right, so all the angles make sense, what I want to do makes sense, and I overshoot to give myself plenty of
options.
Assets. So I won't just shoot one almonds falling down, I'll probably shoot 30, and then I'll shoot 20 milk pours.
It's a lot of overshooting that.
It's a lot of shoot.
I can just picture you there like, this almond is better than the other. Like 30 options. Which one do you choose? You know?
I think because when it comes to it, so then if you're looking at, I might pick the best 5 in Photoshop, and then I'll be like, right, the top part of this image is fantastic. The middle part of this other image is great, and the almonds and the definition or the lighting is better in this one. The closer it gets towards the drink, so then I can take my pick in creating what I want to see, rather than just saying, well, they're the almonds, they're falling towards this drink. That's it. So then I'm very much into having full control of that image.
Here's a question for you. And you showed me this shot with the almonds earlier on, and it looked really good. It's really amazing. Now, when you said you take 30 pictures of these almonds, I know you use like a Hasselblad camera or whichever camera you use.
Yeah.
Do you take like a macro shot of the almond as like a full shot and then throw that in there, because they all looked really good? I'm thinking to myself, the amount of almonds you must have shot.
Yeah, no,
like all macros, and then you just zoom them.
I think generally that out from experience, it doesn't work because it doesn't look real. So you have to always keep the lighting consistent. So I wouldn't use, if there's a light source from the left and then it gets slightly darker to give the kind of texture from the almonds, for instance, and they're all falling down, you have to keep your distance and make sure it looks real and
as it would be as it's falling.
As it would be. Otherwise, if you start rotating, say, almonds from the same shot, you're like, I just want it to be here, I want it to be there, the lighting won't match up. Yeah. So that's why, hence, if I take more than 20, 30 shots, then I might find the almonds that I really want to use, and they're facing the right way and they're doing the right thing, and then I can place them exactly where I want to, and it's all going to look as if it was just falling down, because in essence it just wasn't all at the same time.
Here's a question for you. When you take the picture of the almonds, do you drop him, or do you put them in, like hang it in somewhere and then remove it in post?
No, I literally, they're flying in midair. So there's two ways of doing it. Because they are the shot itself, and we can probably I'll try and show this somehow if we're going to visualize this, but I find if you want to get pure freezing the almonds up in the air, you would generally kind of throw them up in the air and catch them at their slowest point and shoot it, and that's the best way. But because on this occasion I did want them, they are doing something very particular. When they're falling towards the drink, they need to look like they are falling towards the drink. So the flash duration helps me achieve that. Now, it's not pure, they are moving quite fast, so they do get frozen. But then there's, well, what happens when they reach the drink? So I make sure that they're bouncing off a surface. So I capture a real kind of like as if they're dancing around the top of a drink. That's what I wanted. I didn't want them just falling and that was it. I wanted a real thing of what would happen when they reach the drink and then slightly bounce around it.
It's not just, it basically, there's a lot of thought process going into this. It's got to be as real as possible.
A lot of planning.
I was just thinking maybe we should build like a motion control rig and put like an album here and then twist it and then get different angles.
Yeah.
Just speed that process up really.
I mean,
and then just remove it.
It's a process, but when you're used to it, so you kind of think things through from start to finish. You think, okay, so I'll have that asset, and then I'm going to have the milk asset, but then I'm going to need a splash asset as well, and then you need the actual drink. So what you need to do then is when I'm moving on to the drink, the pouring of the milk, again I need maybe 30 pours, because then if I'm doing a series of 6 shots, I might merge 2 pours together to create a perfect pour. And then one of the other challenges is I knew a couple of the drinks would have cream on top, so I couldn't have a start and a finish for the pour. I had to have the end of the pour as it's just about to hit the milk. So that in itself, to capture that moment where it's just going to hover above the cream, it's just about to go into a drink, but it hasn't yet.
I love how I can visualize what you're saying right now. It's just crazy.
You showed us this photo before of this beautiful stream of milk with almonds and this beautiful splash in a glass and so on. So going back to my original question, how long did that take you from conception to delivery to your client?
So
we're talking about one photo. For people listening, we're talking about one photo.
If it's one, I did a series of 7 shots, and believe it or not, it's amazing how many milks are out there. You've got there's hemp, cashew, soy, coconut, oats. All these things have to be visualized. So from start to finish to do a series of 7, it probably took me around, I'd say probably up to 8 to 10 days. So that's to do one
photo, that's a commitment.
So one photo is probably, if I was doing it, it's probably 3 days, 2 to 3 days.
It's just
ridiculous.
Next level.
So,
crazy,
but it's the amount of cleaning up process. So that's why you can't really just do one. So if I'm doing,
you're gonna reset the set each time.
If you're doing a milk pour, you might not do a milk pour for a few weeks or a month. So you're like, well, while I'm here making a massive mess, everything, I'm going to create as many assets as I can.
For you can use it on the paper scissors.
And the same goes for creating splashes. You're splashing milk, end of the day, it goes everywhere, and you got to make sure you get over, because I can't then go back to projects and say, if I only had 2 more different types of splashes. It's like I need enough splashes to cover any eventualities of the milk. For instance, when I was shooting the drinks, I noticed that the ice was slightly more leaning to one side of the drink and there's more space on the left hand side, so I wanted the splash to be representative of where the ice was on the top of a drink. So it's like I've got all those options now that I can create and use different types of splashes. So it's almost like being going away for a trip, and you only need 3 t-shirts, but you're going to take 7 just in case.
I take 12.
Do you, so in the milk case, do you actually use milk? Because there are some, we use, obviously I'm sure you do as well, there are some tricks where you might use, paint, or you might use glue, or you might use a mix of the two to make a better consistency that will look better in camera. Or do you actually use the real deal?
From experience, it's full fat milk is perfect. If you use skim milk, it becomes too transparent. So on this occasion, I wasn't exactly sure of the background colour. So I couldn't afford for it to start going too transparent. Otherwise, it will come post-production time. If suddenly they say, actually, we don't want it earthy colour, we want a bright red, I'll be like, but you can see all the colours through the milk. And I can tweak it, but it's better to try and get it right. So I shot it on a light grey, because that should help, with most eventualities. Yeah. But the whole milk is better because it should give me a good thick non-translucent.
Yeah, it's crazy how people say that there's only one photo. How much can you charge when you literally you get Barry Macario here splitting everything apart like the atom and saying this is how you do it. It's crazy. how much time
you
gets
could
involved.
if you filmed it, you could well do it all in one shot. I could, because it'd be that type of shot, probably like you probably use like 1,000 frames per second, and I'm very into my filming as well, which we could go on to in a bit. But I can see that shot working. You release the milk pour. At the same time, the almonds come in from left and right towards the glass, and then as it hits the drink, you get a splash as well, and it all looks great.
Yeah.
But it's tough to make a drink look fantastic. It's absolute best in all at the same time, to get, say, the espresso going to the milk, to get the swirls going round. So it's, if you can try and create that, it might well happen. Things like real cream, or you could there's other ways of doing cream, but if you got the cream on the drink, it will literally last a second before it starts to collapse. So if you were to do all that in one shot, you put the chocolate sprinklers on, it starts to sink. Then you've got all these other things going on. I think that's the difference between film and with photography. I think if you're going to do photography, it has to be for a reason. You're going to want to see the best that something could possibly ever be. So with film, you've got more time to maybe show the story or the start. Say
there's more of a narrative.
Say if we use slow motion there, we might catch the start of the milk pour and the almonds on the separate shot, so you get the gist of what's going on, and then you might capture the splash hitting the drink, and then the final shot, then we can actually remake the drink and create a drink. So I think that's how I would film it, and almost like, again, splitting it up. But as long as the viewer gets the idea of what you're trying to say, dairy-free milks, you've got almonds, you've got milk pours, and then this amazing drink at the end, that's doable. So I can see that working.
From a client perspective, why should they choose photography, where you're spending, weeks on end in a studio making assets and then combining them together in Photoshop, over CG or 3D assets where they can perfectly compose an image, computer generated? Yeah. What is the main difference?
Probably comes down to budget, but with the photography, it's real, and I think with the drinks, they need to look real, and so much is going on within the glass when you're mixing espresso, milk, ice,
textures, colors, reflections.
And then like the end goal is, the other reason why I shot everything in layers as well is because I'm at stage 1 now. So that's stage 1 for the client. So in 6 weeks' time, or the start of the summer, we need a refresh. So then I'm gonna look towards animating the photography. So what I want to try and achieve is have a slight rotation on, say, the almonds. Then the inside of the drink, I've shot maybe 7 shots of the espresso going into the drink. So then I've shot 7 of those. So if you have an animated GIF, or it's slowly merging into one, I think it's a very clever way of creating motion, but without the expense of, say, actual slow motion. So as long as the drink inside is moving, the almonds might be rotating slightly. I think that could be quite a clever way of capturing a bit more engagement once the initial stills are,
and making the most
consumed.
Of your assets and shooting days. And,
so I kind of think of the long game, the whole offering a client A to Z, rather than kind of stopping at in the middle. You've got to really maximize everything these days, because everyone's very content hungry. So the amount of work that goes into these drinks, they might be all done within 1 week and everyone's seen them, but then it's how do you then keep going, keep using them. So then I might create some animated, just some really simple GIFs of the drink swapping from one to the other. So it's just thinking about different ways to use a set of images and maximize them. That's like where things are kind of going, I think, as well. So you've got to think about that when you're taking on a project, and almost like offer that to the client. You can't just say, oh yeah, okay, I'll just do those stills, thanks, bye. It's like, then it's up to me to go, right, I've done these stills, but just so you know, I might take an extra 2-3 days on the project because I need to create this, because down the line I think we should be doing this. And the client will be like, oh, okay, I agree, that sounds amazing. When can we see a sample? So
you've just been nominated one of top 5 photographers in the world. Is that correct?
Come third.
Come third for One Island, world's best still life photographers.
That's crazy.
Which is fantastic.
Congratulations.
Really which is really good. And thank you very much. As with all photographers, you're never happy unless you win. But third is...
Mate, third's a win to me, in my eyes.
Yeah. I mean, if I was standing in the Olympic Games and I got a bronze, that fair enough. That's really, really good. Yeah. I think it's good because hard work and originality pays off, and it's good to get recognised for that. And these kind of competitions are great because they're just the best of 5 images. You don't submit 100 or 150. It's just the absolute cream of a crop. And when you see the competition who's around you, you realise just how intense it is. I mean, it's great because the previous year, I entered the Photographer of the Year competition. And I came top in the UK. And third globally as well, but that was for Photographer of the Year. But then that's fantastic because then this year I get to be part of a jury and judge this year's competition. So it'd be interesting to see what is out there, what people are doing, fantastic talents, and across all types of photography. It's amazing to see, automotive, lifestyle, architecture. I think everything these days looks incredible.
So when you are a world-leading photographer, right? So one of the best in the world, I guess it's not too cocky to say that. Do you still look up at other people's work? Do you get inspired by other people's work?
Yeah.
Do you?
I think I've got a good reputation for sharing great content on Instagram. I've had some really good engagement. I think some of my behind the scenes films are featured on maybe like a Filmmakers World. I've got over 160,000 views just on one of those channels. So it's very popular to people want to be inspired, and they really respect the amount of DMs I get saying, thank you very much for inspiring me. I'd never know how to even start with something like this. Or they tag me in at something that they've tried to do that I've done, which is really good to see.
Crazy, yeah.
But I think this is something that can be addressed really as well, because I do study, I read things, I kind of see how social media is changing everything. But I personally think over the last 2 years, I think everyone's upped their game significantly, much faster than, say, 6 years ago. I think it's purely down to, if you're creative anyway and you've got access to all these amazing visual pieces of work that you probably wouldn't have seen 5-6 years ago through Instagram, and everyone's absorbing all this knowledge, everyone's sharing now, and it's no big deal for me to share behind the scenes because I do things my way. Even though I might show certain aspects of a project, there's still a huge amount more that goes into it people don't see, but it's still engaging. And I learn from other people. I want people to learn from me, and I do look up to other people, and what they share is truly amazing. Probably mention Steve Girard is one of the guys. He's DM'd me a few times, and we've got good relationship. But people like that is something that I didn't really know much about a couple of years ago, and he's brought it to everyone's attention, like you guys are
through social media.
Through social media, and suddenly I'm thinking, wow, okay, right. So this is where someone else is taking it. This could be the future, and it's amazing to see just what's achievable. So people look up to me, and then I look up to other people, and I'm sure Steve looks up to and researches other people again. And it's an amazing time where to be a creative. I think this access that we've got. Like I said before, I never got to assist anyone. I taught myself, but I believe everything that probably took me 10 years to learn, I would say if you're really hot on Instagram and you follow the right people, and you could probably learn a huge amount within like a couple of years. But
so much
you have to be
out
good. Yeah, there's a lot of resources, and
it's not even good. You got to be ready for. You got to be prepared for that amount of time and commitment. Yeah, that patience as well. You know,
and it's good to see, because I think I was one thing that I didn't say. You know, I did go lucky enough to go to somewhere like Central St Martin's, and very, very good reputation, very creative, but they couldn't care less what equipment you had. They had nothing there. They'd like, the ethos was, if you don't have it, go and get it. You know, if you don't have that, think of another way to achieve something. And that's, you know, stood me really well, even till now. It forces you to be creative with what you have at your disposal. And I think, like Instagram, where people look at all these things, it doesn't matter what gear you have, as long as you can be creative. I'll see some amazing things on people's accounts, and they've got hardly anything, but it's about being that kind of having that creative edge.
It's about making something from nothing. But if you had the best tools, what could you do with that? It's just
I think sometimes people, it's always like, be careful what you wish for, because I think sometimes people get a bit lazy as well. Suddenly they got 100 megapixel camera and they're like, wow, my work's going to be amazing. It's like, well, it's not. It's like, it might make it a little bit better, but if you've got extremely creative and you shoot it on a 20 megapixel camera, it's still going to be a better shot than, you know, I'd rather have less and try even harder than to have everything and just be like, you know. But I've shot on 100 megapixel cameras, done some portraits I do for a client of mine for, you know, men's grooming and barbers, and it is exceptional. It reminds me of when the very few times I ever shot 5.4 at uni, and the quality and the skin tone and everything it is absolutely incredible. But it comes at a huge price, you know,
of course,
which not everyone's willing to spend. Not even me. My camera's fine. You know, like me, you know, I've had my camera for, you know, a number of years now, and it's very good and it does enough, and I don't feel the need.
Which camera is this?
I shoot with Hasselblad.
Yeah. I'm sure the people want to know.
Yeah, it's a medium format, only 40 megapixel, but the tone, the quality it gives you is more than enough. I don't feel the need to go and buy a new one, because for me it's like, right, that part is done. Doesn't matter what I do, my work's not going to improve with a 60 or 100 megapixel camera. It's still going to be creative. So I'd rather spend the money on filming gear or new lights or other types of equipment to do something better. Yeah, I see it all as